We're starting fresh in a fictional state that blends Colorado's mountains with California's coast, building a city that feels authentically North American. Welcome to Goldenridge. All right, so here we are in City Skylines II. I found this great map on the Paradox Workshop that I think has all kinds of great stuff going on. It's got a big, nice flat area. It's got some really great, really realistic looking mountains. It's got a nice big lake over here, some farmland. And then it's also got this whole giant peninsula that's kind of flat and has a river going through it and a bunch of coastline area. And then it's got these huge mountains out here and this really awesome valley. Not totally sure about that bridge. It's looking super sketchy to drive on. That's going to be a no from me, dog, but we might adjust some of that stuff. But overall, I think this is one of the cooler maps that I've come across. I think the hardest part about starting any City Skylines build is finding the map that has enough space but isn't just totally flat and boring. And there's so many out there that are great, but I always have a hard time kind of feeling interested and inspired and wanting to do something cool with it. So this one really stood out to me. So I think eventually we'll get something built out down there, but for now I want to start kind of a medium-sized city right in this area on these rivers, where these rivers meet, and at the foot of these hills. And we actually do have an outside connection to the water here, although that is looking a little precarious for large ships to get through, but we can always terraform that maybe and make it a little more passable for ships if we want to turn this into kind of an industrial bay. All right, so the first thing I want to do here is start this highway and get this running into town. There is a very out-of-the-way outside connection way out here that we might have cut in through here eventually, but there will be cars coming in this way. So I do want to get a highway, and eventually when we do build out here, we'll want this to be a nice established highway for that too. So I'm going to start with parallel roads and continuous curves, and we'll get that in there and just have this come right in between those little areas. And a little too far, I think. I want to do my best to work around the topology we have. And then we can bring that in right about there. And cross right around here. And then what I want this to do is to turn into, actually those need to be a little higher, because I want this bridge to be raised just a little bit, and I forgot to elevate it on my way in. So starting probably right about here, we'll get these kind of starting to come up right about there, and then make sure that these are, yeah, that's a bit more of the elevation I'm looking for. Make sure that's straight, and make sure that those are the same elevation. 0.1 is fine, and then we'll have these curve down to come back to ground level. So let's see, is that about ground level? Yeah, I think that is. And then I'm going to have these split off into two parallel one-way roads that are going to cut all the way through town. So we'll go to out of highways and into three-lane one-way roads, which we will also have parallel and at about 8 distance, so that we can have like nice real city blocks between them. And then I think we'll put these right about here, something like that. I think will work pretty well. Okay, and now we will take I'm still actually going to use highway here because I don't want the city streets to start until we meet this, and we'll have a crossroad here. So we'll go back to highways and just use individual 3-lane highways to meet up. We will need them to be curved though. So we'll just get that guy going, and that's about what I had in mind. And then coming back the same way. Yeah, that is exactly what I was looking for. And then we'll get a nice big 6-lane road coming in right here to... Actually, I might do it a little farther up and then change, because I do want a little bit of the highway to be kind of straight. So we'll go back and update these to the individual 3-lane highway. I want to meet this big road up with the road coming off of our highway connection over there. So find that 6-lane road again and bring this out to about here, and we can have this one coming out to something like right about there. And then see if we can't get those to meet pretty nice. Yeah, that'll work, and break up the grid a little bit. And then around the edge here, along this river, I want to get a road that kind of follows, kind of a ring road to follow our river here. We can either get some industrial or probably maybe some apartments, you know, that are right on the riverside apartments. That could be a nice little neighborhood here. And we'll get this coming up about there, and then it can kind of come through this little corridor here and meet up with our national road right about there. So that's all looking pretty good. And then we do have another outside connection with this highway over here that I think we'll have come in, and we can have a bridge that comes over the river and over for what is now Heather Street, but we'll probably change the name of that road. So, and then we'll connect that up to our main road that is, let's see if we get that right in about there. And let's just smooth that out with Move It here, just to make that a little bit. This is an aggressive angle cornered here, so I think we can maybe smooth that out, maybe. A little bit. Probably should actually, on this, at least this little right turn, just get a little one-way without the parallel. Just a little one-way kind of right turn area, but I think maybe we just use the alley. Okay. All right, I think that's looking pretty good for kind of our outside. We've got a nice ring going between highway and this road here. So, yeah, I think that's leaving us in a good place. I'm going to lay down more of a grid so that we can start getting some zoning and some building going, being this a kind of California / mixed with Colorado build. I think we're going to stay fairly gridded, but I do also want to make sure that we're keeping things interesting, which, you know, I started to do some of that with this stuff, but I'll find some other ways to mix that in, and then we'll go from there, and we'll get back to some zoning and some services. Okay, so I think that's a decent start. Obviously, plenty to go, but I think that gives us, like I said, a place to start, and we can figure out kind of more organically where things will go. What I also want to do is make sure we have a train in here. So let's take a look at what we have for stations. So we want something a little bigger than that. Let's try. That's not too bad, and kind of looks a little bit like the train station in Denver, the downtown station. Even though this is the German one, it kind of has a similar look to it. Eastern European. That's definitely got a Californian look to it, and then that one's just a little small. So I think we're going to stick with, I think we'll go with this German one, and just kind of looking at where a train might come from. So if we have our track all the way back here, maybe it branches off around here, comes over across. There's really not a super organic place for there to be the train station. I probably should have started with that, but that's okay. Especially since trains did tend to be, original transportation when Western cities were kind of formed, especially along the kind of California, Colorado, Utah, Nevada area. But this spot's not feeling terrible. I think we'll have to figure out exactly the most organic way for it to make it to this location. So let's just flatten this out a bit and go back to our train station. I mean, that's feeling like a nice place for it. We could even have it going. Actually, having a train coming through here would be pretty good, and coming around, going straight across and out back to that one. So I actually think that's a great spot. That'll work. And then let's also get some fire services in. Let's see what we have for the Northeast and the Southwest packs. That one fits pretty perfectly right there. That's a little too dense. That one is looking really nice too. I think for now, those are our two main. That's probably not the best spot for it though. So we'll go with that one for now. And then for police, let's see. That's a little too big and fancy. That's a little too downtown. That one too. I think that one is looking pretty nice. I try to make the blocks fairly small and dense, but now, of course, I forget how big a lot of the things in this game are asset-wise. But we might be able to sneak that in here and use the bulldozer to get rid of, let's see, some of the things that are clipping into that. Okay, so we've got that. Let's get some schools down. That's looking like a pretty classic American high school. This, I feel like, would more likely be kind of out in more of a residential area, which I think this is probably going to most realistically be. So maybe we'll just stick it there and we'll come back to that. Same with the elementary school. I think those things can wait. But we will need some medical, which feels like a very downtown thing. Right across from the train station. I mean, this might realistically be parking. I feel like it should be in a fairly Here we go. I think that's actually a great spot for a hospital, right across a bunch of roads going on. And then water and sewage stuff. I feel like this is more of an industrial area, which we have not built out at all. But let's get some of that stuff in. Actually, we have enough electricity because this map is literally called 2 dams, and there are, in fact, 2 dams that should be providing us with plenty of electricity. So let's just make sure. I think we need a transformer station to get those things connected. And we should be able to connect those. All right, that should give us power. And then for water, but I think we're going to do, so for water treatment plant, we should probably have, let's get some roads going on in this little kind of industrial park that this will end up being. All right, I'm going to flatten this out and get some roads going here real quick. We're going to keep this really simple for now. We'll do a whole industrial park thing at some point, but for now I just wanted to have some roads so that we can at least get the things, the basic services we need up and running. So that is a little snug. So let's go ahead and just scoot that road over just a bit. Right about there should work. So that'll be some water, and then make sure we can connect this underground. And we have electricity and we have water. So this is treatment, and then we need a pumping station, which is much larger than I remembered. That actually, or how do we get that on there? Come on. There we go. That actually works pretty well. We are in the water where we need to be. We'll just get rid of this road. Nope. And yeah, that actually worked out better than expected. There we go. I think that should get us going in terms of real basic service stuff. Obviously, there's a lot we'll need, but so let's go ahead and get some zoning stuff in. All right, we'll see how that goes. I also realized that I do want to get some surface level parking in before stuff starts to go up. So let's make sure we've got plenty of that in, because I think that always helps help these type of builds really feel the way they should. All right, let's go ahead and hit play and see how this goes. All right, so that's not looking too bad. It's almost a little denser than I was thinking, but that's looking like a fairly well populated western town here, I think. Yeah, I mean, these new North American assets really make this much easier to kind of get the look that you're going for with something from California, Colorado, you know, those kind of areas. All right, so it looks like we are going to need some death care, which I did not get in. I think a crematorium always works well. Kind of out here by the water might be not a bad place for that. And then we are now having a pretty serious demand for low density residential, which we have none of. So I think getting some of this area for that with these schools built in will take care of that need. So I'm going to lay down some roads for out there. All right, well, we've got some of that down. We still have a huge demand for it, but at least we've got some schools going and the start of this more residential suburban neighborhood. So we are making some progress here. I did clear out a little bit of space for this train, so let's see if we can get some of these tracks going. We want the unelectrified. Kind of want to run this right. In fact, let's actually start with this because I basically want to run this right next to the road here, although that got funky real quick. I kind of want it to cross right there, but that might end up messing this up. No, there it is. There it is. All right, so we get those in. We can kind of have these come through and meet. Let's turn snapping off and see if we can't get something kind of realistic. Kinda. I mean, not really, but I think we'll run with that for the moment. And then let's get snapping back on. And I think we're going to go, we're going to go under this freeway and up. We'll do kind of a long, so let's start with the slope tool here. And we're going to want a nice long, slow progression. So maybe somewhere around here. I don't know. Let's see if that feels like it might still be too steep, but we will find out. And let's make sure our sloping is on there. Actually, maybe we'll just start and worry about connecting that at the end. So 2%, I'm not sure what is considered not, too high. So it looks like a realistic train grade is about 2.5 to 4. So we're actually good. That's great. 2% is not even on the low end of what seems to be realistic. So that's fantastic. And then we're just going to keep this. Let's get a nice smooth area for our train to pass through. And that looks to be about a 1.5% grade, which is great. And so looking at this valley all the way to the end here, it is pretty, I think we're going to have to stick pretty close to the speed of the road. Or sorry, the curvature of this road, I think, will be a good guide. So let's just maybe make this a little bit bigger. Let's just kind of stick with what we have and see if we can't go like little bit at a time. So let's take a look. Yeah, I think that's working pretty well, and that's a great. Driving on a river mountain road like this as the train goes kind of parallel is always nice. Let's see if we can't even out this retaining wall a little bit, smooth that out. There we go. That's already looking much better. And then is there anywhere else that need, yep, right here. Smooth that out. And overall, that actually worked out pretty well. Smooth that down a bit. And just kind of swing through this area. Check out our train tracks. Oh yeah, and that we'll have to... I think we can probably get rid of that retaining wall maybe, or maybe we leave it. And probably we can turn this highway into a key wall is probably the thing to do there. So that'll be the right side key wall, and that is 1-lane highway here and there, and then that is our 6-lane, I think. Yes, but that looks like it. Oh, did it on the wrong side. There we go. And then for the 4-lane highway as well. Yep, that will work. We'll just do a little more smoothing of some of this stuff. And for these little edges, I found that if you take a really small brush for the slope and click up at the bottom, you can kind of... Oh, not working so well that time. There we go. Kind of click over here and start far enough back. You can smooth that out a little bit so that at least from afar, it doesn't look quite so jarring. There we go. All right, so it looks like, and then let's just connect our train track here. And then I think the train should be good. At least we'll get another connection with it going, whoopsie, with it going out this way. And I noticed that we did kind of accidentally have a little elevation here over this. So we can even, that'll be a perfect train bridge right across the river there. So train tracks. And just get that. I think we want that to be ground though. Oh, it's because key wall was on. There we go. There it is. Okay. I think that is working. And then while we're at it, let's at least get our train connection going. Cargo, passenger rail line, boom, boom, and back. Oh, I do not have a depot. I always forget about the depot. That's gonna, we don't have a place to put that in town, unfortunately. So I guess let's build this river bridge out now and just get a temporary connection. We can just kind of throw down, let's start with that. Let's throw down our rail yard out here in the countryside. This is going to be super temporary. Let's worry about getting this going. So we're going to elevate this a little bit to create enough clearance. Just, oh, let's get our contour lines on. Just enough. And then we'll slope that down to about here. Maybe even a little farther back. And then we can push that back a bit and smooth it out. And then we will slope that as well. So 2.9, I think, I'm guessing that's what it's telling me the grade is. I don't know that I ever noticed that on the slope tool before, but that's great. So that's right, still in our wheelhouse. So if we do need to go a little higher, we still can. So this is at 58 yards, and this is at 49. So that's a little bit better. Okay. And now back to our train tracks. So let's just start with, there we go. That's better in terms of elevation. And then we can connect, get this connected up. Coming down to, oh, that's the wrong curve tool. I'm gonna try, oh, we do have a train coming in though. Oh, I guess even though it's not connected, just having this depot lets trains come in from the outside. Well, that's doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's all right. All right, so we want to get this about here, and then there. All right, that looks pretty good. Somehow that worked. And then these are at all kinds of different elevations. So let's, there we go. All right, there we go. So we didn't even have to connect everything, but we do have trains running, I guess it looks like now. There. All right, I think that's a pretty good start. Obviously, there's a lot to do, and this is looking fairly bare bones, but there's going to be a lot of detailing in this build, and I really want to make this feel as realistic and well thought out as possible. So I tend to be more of a plopper than a zoner, but these new assets definitely help. But we're going to go in, and now that we have this kind of base, we can get in there and really start fine-tuning stuff and adding detail. And that road system right there is looking a little weird. But yeah, so thanks for watching, and thanks for joining me here at City Skylines. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.